What if I told you that the moment you started to understand life was also the moment you stopped being young, not because time passed, not because you got older on paper, but because something inside you quietly changed. You didn't notice it at first. It wasn't loud. It didn't announce itself. It came in small moments, a disappointment here, a heartbreak there, a night where you stared at the ceiling, wondering why everything felt so heavy, and before you knew it, you were no longer the same person. There is a sentence that perfectly captures this silent transformation. We are too young to understand where life's storms come from, yet we become mature during the most beautiful years of our lives. At first glance, it sounds simple, but if you sit with it long enough, you realize it carries a quiet kind of pain, the kind that doesn't scream, but lingers, because it tells a truth most people feel, but very few know how to explain. 1. Too young to understand. When we are young, we believe life is something we can figure out. We think, if we try hard enough, things will work out. If we are kind, people will treat us the same way. If we love sincerely, love will last. But reality doesn't follow these rules. Life doesn't wait for you to be ready. It doesn't ask if you understand. It simply happens. Storms come into your life without warning. A relationship ends without explanation. A friend changes without reason. A dream slowly falls apart despite your effort. And the hardest part is not the pain itself. It's the confusion. You ask yourself, why did this happen? What did I do wrong? Why does it feel so unfair? But there are no clear answers, because at that stage of life you don't yet have the experience to connect the dots. You feel everything, but you understand very little. And that's what makes it so overwhelming. 2. The invisible weight of storms. The phrase storms of life is not just about big tragedies. Sometimes the storms are quiet. They are the pressure to succeed, the fear of falling behind the loneliness in a crowded room, the feeling of not being enough. No one teaches you how to deal with these things. There's no manual for how to heal from emotional pain, how to let go of expectations, how to rebuild yourself after disappointment. So you learn the only way you can? By going through it. And each time you go through something difficult, you lose a little bit of your innocence. Not all at once, not dramatically, just little by little. 3. Growing up too fast. This is where the second part of the sentence becomes painfully real. Yet we become mature during the most beautiful years of our lives. Maturity is often praised. People say, "You've grown, you're so strong, you handle things so well." But they rarely ask, what did you have to go through to become that way? Because real maturity is not just about wisdom. It is often built on silent struggles, hidden pain, unspoken disappointments. You become mature not because you wanted to, but because you had no choice. You start thinking more carefully. You trust less easily. You protect yourself more. You learn to hide your feelings. You learn to say, "I'm fine," when you're not. You learn to carry things alone. And suddenly, without realizing it, you are no longer the carefree person you once were. 4. The tragedy of youth. Youth is supposed to be the most beautiful time of life. It is supposed to be light, free, full of possibility. But for many people, it is also the time they feel the most lost. Because while the world expects you to chase dreams, build a future, enjoy life, you are internally struggling to understand yourself, heal from your experiences, make sense of your emotions. It's a contradiction. You are living in your best years, but you don't feel your best. You are surrounded by opportunities, but also by uncertainty. You are moving forward in life, but emotionally, you feel stuck. And that is the quiet tragedy of youth. You don't fully appreciate it while you're in it, because you're too busy surviving it. 5. The cost of early maturity. Becoming mature early comes with a price. You lose your ability to trust blindly, your habit of seeing the world in simple terms, your natural sense of ease. Instead, you gain awareness, caution, emotional depth. But awareness can be heavy, because once you start seeing things clearly, you can't unsee them. You notice people's intentions, the fragility of relationships, the unpredictability of life. And while this makes you wiser, it also makes you more tired. Not physically, but emotionally. 6. But is it all loss? At this point, it may sound like everything is being taken away from you. Your innocence, your simplicity, your lightness. But there is another side to this story, because while life takes something from you, it also gives you something in return. Strength, not the loud, obvious kind, but the quiet kind. The kind that helps you endure difficult days, teaches you to keep going, even when you don't feel like it, allows you to rebuild yourself again and again. You may not understand where the storms came from, but you begin to learn how to walk through them, and that is a different kind of power. 7. Learning without understanding. One of the deepest truths in life is this: you don't always understand something at the moment you experience it. Sometimes understanding comes later, much later, years after the pain, years after the confusion. You look back and realize why something ended, why someone left, why things didn't go the way you wanted. But when you were in the middle of it, you didn't know. And that's okay, because life is not meant to be fully understood in real time. It is meant to be lived first and understood later. 8. A different perspective. So maybe the sentence is not just about loss. Maybe it is also about transformation. Yes, you were too young to understand. Yes, you became mature too early. But maybe that maturity is not something to regret. Maybe it is something to honor, because it represents everything you've been through, everything you've survived, everything you've learned. Even without realizing it, you are not the same person you were before. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. 9. A gentle realization. One day you will look back at your younger self, the version of you who didn't understand, felt lost, struggled silently, and instead of feeling sadness, you might feel something else: compassion. You will realize you were doing the best you could with what you knew at the time, and maybe, just maybe, that is enough. Conclusion, closing reflection. So if you ever feel like you've grown up too fast, like you've lost something you can't quite name, like your youth slipped through your fingers before you could fully hold it, don't rush to call it a loss, because within that loss is also a quiet kind of growth. You may have become mature during the most beautiful years of your life, but that doesn't mean those years were wasted. It means those years shaped you. And maybe the truth is not that you were too young to understand life, but that life was teaching you in the only way it knows how. Not gently, not slowly, but honestly. And in the end, that honesty becomes your strength.